if a woman says, hey, I was 30 and I had, a 6-pack ab, which would be really unusual for a woman in general. I want to say 6-pack abs, 4-pack, maybe 6-pack is very unusual for a woman, but hats off if you have one. And then all of a sudden at 35, you've got what I call the wine bar that emerges and you get a little more belly fat. What is the lifestyle solution for that?
Well, I kind of start from a place of practicality. And I love that you mentioned, let's not start with supplements and medications, because that's the traditional allopathic mindset. So the lifestyle piece has to be the foundational piece. When a woman is telling me that her body fat is up, because if you go from having a 6-pack to not, I think about inflammatory food consumption. So gluten, grains, dairy, alcohol is a good one, processed sugar, soy. I think about the lack of muscle mass in the body. I think about what's your stress management like. And it goes without saying, we know we've got 40 times more cortisol receptors in our abdomen than we have elsewhere in our body. So what do you think happens when we get stressed out? We get a stress belly. And so that's a cortisol belly, depending on who you hear that from. I also think about like sleep quality. And I know I talk about sleep all the time.
I do too. It's important.
But I totally nerd out and try to biohack the heck out of my sleep. I wear my Oura Ring proudly because I can track all my data, and I'm a nerd like that. So I'll admit that. But I think about the fact that a lot of women think that they'll sleep when they're dead, or, they put their kids to bed and then they want to work until, they want to catch up on email or laundry or whatever. And my mother taught me something that has always resonated: sleep when baby sleeps, or sleep when, your kids are asleep. Now I have teenagers and that's completely thrown out the window. But the point of what I'm sharing is all these pieces can contribute to weight loss resistance. And so, being really conscientious about figuring out like, why did you suddenly start gaining fat? It's like, those are the directions I generally go. And I oftentimes find it's as simple as you're eating too frequently. Do you eat 3 meals a day and snacks and then have a couple glasses of wine after dinner? And so maybe you're going 7 hours a day without eating. I mean, that's like unbelievable, but it can be something as simple as that.
Yep.
That can have a huge net impact. And I think that's why a lot of people have initial such great success with fasting, because they're just eating too darn frequently.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think about the idea that when you are fasting, what you're doing is you're allowing your body to repair and heal? Mm-hmm. I think of fasting a lot like sleeping. Mm-hmm. And this is why I agree with you. Like, we have to like protect sleep. Yeah. And with the sleeping thing, I have to tell you that the other night I got like laughing at myself. I literally have like 12 things I do before I sleep. And it's like, get up, put the blue blockers on, get my chili pad going, get the temperature of the room right. Where's the weighted blanket? Let me take my melatonin supplement. I'm like, the other night I was like, girl, you are over the top with your sleep regime, but it works. So.
Yeah. And that's important.
It's super important. So I think with fasting, here's my question to you is, when you look at somebody who randomly gains weight and then you see all the things that need to happen to help her lose that weight, which is a beautiful list you just gave, I think fasting is the fastest path to accomplish everything you just said. And when we look at the research studies, some of the classic research out of like cell metabolism, they basically, the way I read it is, you're metabolically immune from a poor diet. If you just compress your poor diet in a, 8-hour eating window, you can give your body that extra time it needs to repair and recover from the damage of that diet. I'm not saying we need to all go out and eat a bad diet, but do you feel like intermittent fasting is literally the fastest path to unwind all the damages you just spoke of?
I do, with the exception of someone who's not sleeping. So if you're not sleeping, don't add in fasting, like get the sleep dialed in first. And I feel like there's a lot more women that don't prioritize sleep, but that becomes a larger issue for them than people that they're not having issues with sleep. With that being said, I absolutely positively think when we reduce meal frequency, that has huge benefits. I mean, almost instantaneously. In fact, I'm sure this happens for you as well. Like, someone watches a video or is in one of your programs and they reach out and they're like, oh my God, I mean, within a week, I'm less bloated.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah. And
some days I read my comments and the stories and I'm like, it still blows my mind. Like, it's this free tool that transforms your health like I have never seen.
Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing because I think on so many levels, like we're helping build awareness to the unique needs of like women's physiology. And it's a conversation that needs to be had because, we can't apply those principles to men and women the same way. It's not to suggest it's not effective in both genders. It obviously is. Yeah. But I think it's also very reassuring for women to know like, oh, okay, there's some unique needs here that I need to kind of lean. And I always say, lean into your physiology. Don't feel like you have to explain it, apologize for it. I mean, I always felt like in my 20s, I don't know if you were this way, like if I got my period when I was away with friends or over the weekend, I always feel like I had to apologize. Like, I'm sorry, I'm so tired, or I'm sorry that I'm so grumpy, or I'm sorry that I want to eat like a whole pizza in one night, whatever crazy thing I did in my 20s. Whereas I think now, and much to your point, sleep becomes hugely impactful for women at any stage of life, but especially if you want to lose weight. I always say, you want to lose weight, you got to sleep. I got to get you sleeping through the night first. But fasting, absolutely, as a caveat, can be one of the most powerful ways for people to get rid of excess weight they don't want.
Yeah. Do you see people who, once they get into ketosis, they have trouble sleeping? And when people start fasting more, and even in the longer fast, are you seeing that people struggle to sleep? And
I do. In fact, I was laughing. There was it wasn't one of my groups I moderated, it wasn't one of yours, but it was interesting. There was a woman saying like, she loves how she feels when she does a long fast, but her sleep's terrible the whole time. And I was like, well, maybe you need to break your fast. And she was like, what? Maybe you need to break your fast. Because from my perspective, sleep is so critically important for balancing hormones and, the lymphatic system, all these very sophisticated things that happen. And we build muscle when we sleep if we're doing it properly. So I just said, well, you have to think about the cost benefit. Like, is an extra day of fasting good for you if you have 3 days where you sleep terribly and you're getting like 4 hours a night of sleep and you're walking around like a zombie? Right. We talk about hormetic stress and hormesis. And I always go back to the right stress in the right amount at the right time. And when that's done, it's great for your body, makes you stronger, more resilient. But by the same token, you're doing it at the right time. If you're doing it at the wrong time for too long time, you can actually end up damaging or hurting yourself. Yeah. And so we don't want that. We definitely want people to become much more attuned to what their body needs, for sure.
And so one of the things that I've thought about is that actually when you are fasting, you're repairing, and when you're sleeping, you're repairing. And I can't find any science on this, but I feel like if you're repairing during the day, what if you potentially don't need as much sleep at night? Because now with fasting, you've put yourself into this self-healing state, which is also sleep. So maybe there's a scenario where as you build a fasting lifestyle, you need less sleep. That's a question that I've been curious about. I'm sort of curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I guess it comes down to like, how do you feel when you wake up? Like you might, while you're doing a prolonged fast, maybe you're sleeping 5 or 6 hours and you wake up energized. That's great. That's different in the context of that one woman's example. I haven't seen any research on that either. And I guess it's my understanding, and obviously I'm not a sleep expert, but I guess it was my understanding that there's so much that goes on physiologically when your body's in this repair mode, that even with upregulation of autophagy, this waste and recycling process, I thought the lymphatic system activation actually required so much power that I guess I don't fully understand. Again, I'm not a brain scientist, but that's a good question. And one that is worth kind of pondering, that if you're doing really well with a prolonged fast and you're in this upregulation of autophagy, do you need as much sleep? I don't know. You have to think about that.
Yeah. To be continued, I'd be curious because you and I are probably the closest to watching women and fasting over, hundreds of thousands of women. So it's fun for me to hear what you're seeing in your community. And that is definitely something I've seen. The other thing that I've seen, total side note, I'm not sure I ever told you this, that when we've done longer fasts with our community, especially when we guide people through a 3-day water fast, the most common symptom that women get is either low back pain or pelvic pain. And so we, as the community that I'm a part of, we were trying to figure this out. And the theory was that what if there's scar tissue that happens from carrying a baby and delivering a baby? So when you start to make stem cells, you actually are repairing those scar tissue area. Cool, right?
It is so cool. It's interesting because, I always encourage people to, once they're fat adapted, once they get into ketosis to really start to play with longer or shorter fasts. And I think on a lot of levels, there are benefits to doing longer fasting, but I still feel like there's a little hesitancy. People feel a little hesitant to lean into doing a 2-day, a 3-day fast. Although I met someone in Las Vegas when I was speaking in October, and she was young, like 27, because I actually asked her how old she was because she looked young. And she's like, yeah, I want to do a fast for a month. And I was like, well, why? That was my first question. I was like, I asked this lovingly, but why?
Yeah.
I said, because, there's that whole kind of communal connection piece. Like I know when I'm doing longer fasts, I feel a little less connected to my family when they're sitting down and eating. So, she was saying, well, I just felt so good when I did a week. I figured a month would be better. I was like, how about you just stick to and you're a young woman. And then I explained the physiology of why, food scarcity and famine might give her brain the wrong information. It might say food's, not coming anytime soon. So we need to shut down this fertility. We're not going to ovulate. We're not going to get our menstrual cycle.
Yeah, no.
She hadn't even thought about that. So yeah.
Good. Well, it's a good thing she came to you. You were the right, you were the right person to go ask that to. So that's awesome. What do you think about just fast? Like when we look at brain health, what do you think about fasting as a tool to improve brain health? And I'm talking about all different aspects of brain health, mood disorders, mental clarity, even, memory loss. Where does fasting fit in for that?
I think it's critically important. We know that women in particular, and this is just fresh on my brain from a podcast a few days ago, but we know that women become more insulin resistant as we get closer to menopause. And so when you think about the net impact on brain health and the degree of Alzheimer's dementia and other vascular dementias that you see in middle age, I really think that fasting is a critically important tool for helping to maintain healthy blood sugar levels and insulin sensitivity. And so, I think a lot of us in the fasting space, talk about beta hydroxybutyrate and how it diffuses across the blood-brain barrier and that helps with mental clarity. And so that's a great starting point because that can be such a big win for people that are dealing with brain fog, maybe even depression, that all of a sudden, gosh, I feel so much better.
It's amazing.